We've just gotten the full transcript of the day's proceedings, and John Berman is going through it right now. Before we go through some of the key moments, it's worth noting that it was just over 6 years ago, after months of silence about the alleged payment to Stormy Daniels, when then President Trump finally answered repeated questions by the media and said he knew nothing about the payment, but pointed to Michael Cohen.
President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
No.
Why did Michael Cohen make it if there was no truth to your allegation?
Well, you have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's an attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael Cohen.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
I don't know. No.
Joining us now with transcripts from Cohen's testimony today, CNN's John Berman.
So we did just get the final installment of the transcript, and it was at the very end of the day in this last section that perhaps the most important legal moment took place, and it had to do when Michael Cohen testified about the payment plan and what Trump knew. He described a meeting in Trump Tower in January of 2017 when Trump was president-elect at that point with Alan Weisselberg, Michael Cohen, and Donald Trump. Michael Cohen says, during the conversation, Alan turned around and said to me, while we're talking about this, it was, and what we're going to do is we're going to pay you over 12 months. It was probably better if I get it in one lump sum. No. Why don't you do it as over 12 months and it will be paid out to you monthly? Question from the prosecutor, Susan Hoffinger. And did he say anything about how it would be paid out as something? Cohen, yeah, it was like legal service rendered since I was then being given the title of personal attorney to the president. Then a little bit later, Hoffinger asks, did Mr. Weisselberg state in front of Mr. Trump that you were going to receive $420,000 over the course of 12 months? Cohen, yes. Hoffinger, and what, if anything, did Mr. Trump say at the time? Cohen says he approved it, and he also said this is going to be one heck of a ride in D.C. Question from Hoffinger, and did Mr. Weisselberg say in front of Mr. Trump that those monthly payments would be, you know, like a retainer for legal services? Michael Cohen says yes.
So why, Laura Coates, is that the most critical testimony from the day?
Well, because we're talking about 34 counts of falsified business records. The heart of this matter is not whether there was an affair or whether the allegations were true about either Karen McDougal or certainly Stormy Daniels. It's about whether or not they intentionally falsified records to suggest that this was more than what McConney talked about, just simple drop-down menu. Oh, our options were this. I had to put legal services down. It was an intentional act he's alleging. Of course, you're talking about Alan Weisselberg and Cohen in this conversation, but the defendant is actually Trump. That's the issue.
But if you looked at the words that Berman just read, I'm calling you that because that's what he calls you. I'm sorry.
I answered it much worse.
I don't mean to be disrespectful. I always hear him call
Everybody calls it.
All right, sorry. He says he approved it, but he doesn't use the words that he approved it with. He quotes him saying this is going to be a heck of a ride in D.C., which has nothing to do with the approval. So that's something that I would focus on as well. When you said he approved it, did he nod his head? Did he say something? You testified direct. He approved it, but you didn't say how he approved it. You said, okay, that's great. That sounds good. Alan, get it done. You just said he approved it. But then you remember him saying it's going to be a heck of a ride in D.C. So why is your memory so clear about it's a heck of a ride in D.C. and not how did he approve it?
But isn't that statement that he remembers? If he were lying, wouldn't he say, "Oh yes, make it, be sure to make it, it look like a legal fee"? In fact, it seems like Trump sort of changes the subject and talks about his experience in D.C. Doesn't that
my only point is
he
doesn't say how he approves it. He just says he approved it.
What
does that mean?
The other question also is Michael Cohen talked about how he basically never constructed a retainer agreement for Trump because he never was getting paid for basically anything that he did for Donald Trump, including the $100,000 he was owed when he was first brought on a decade ago, and including in this moment when he was changing jobs then. So I think the other question that I had in there was, okay, well, why is he now getting paid? And how often if you are getting a legal retainer, is it ever grossed up for taxes?
No.
Exactly. So that's the primary question here.
So I mean, the critical thing about that meeting is, if it's to be believed, this is the moment when Trump is informed that the billing is going to be this improper legal services, essentially.
Well, yes, but also Trump writes the checks. I mean, what possible explanation is there except that it is the deal that he worked out with Weisselberg and Cohen?
One of the questions that I have, maybe Arthur, you can speak to this. Is there a defense in Trump saying, or Trump's attorney saying, Well, he was advised by Alan Weisselberg that this is the best way to do it, and he agreed.
That's definitely a piece of it. And also, I mean, it's not that a veterinarian laid out the money and he's giving it to Michael Cohen, a legal fee, and then Michael Cohen's going to give it to him. His lawyer did lay out the money. The money is going to Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is his lawyer. So writing a legal fee down there is not like so far-fetched. If I'm doing the closing argument, I would say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you think when Donald Trump had construction done on one of his buildings and he wrote a check to the construction firm, do you think he broke it down? Well, this much was for concrete, and this much was for rebar, and this much was for window? Or did you just say, here's the big check, you deal with it from there. Here, Michael Cohen, here's the big check. If some of it is money that you earn, it's yours. If some of it's money you laid out, it's yours. But in my mind, it all goes under legal fees.
And the prosecution has a different summation, right? And that's why they have book excerpts to talk about how meticulously he managed his money, how he would say, and even had Ms. Westerhouse saying, look, he would look at the things, he would void out other aspects of it. He knew where his money was going.
He was telling Michael Cohen to pay 20 cents on the dollar.
Exactly. He was telling him to renegotiate. Part of the testimony today was about Michael Cohen's job being to renegotiate invoices that he didn't like. That was a big part of his job.
The argument isn't he's not paying Michael Cohen. The argument that you make as defending Donald Trump is it's money going to his lawyer.
But
okay, it's money whether it's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Not for legal services, that's the point.
Okay, but and I think you could argue to a jury that this is minutia and it is a political hit job on this guy, because that guy sitting in the front row, Alvin Bragg, who's not sitting in a murder trial right now, who's not sitting in a robbery trial right now, he's sitting here because he doesn't want him to be president of the United States. It's called selective prosecutions, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and your justice in this courtroom and justice dictates that you walk him right out.
Well, let me raise it with my Well, I'll raise it with this tomato. Hold on a second. I got to go trial attorney with you in this, because I would then say, thinking about sitting in different rooms, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the President of the United States was in the Oval Office, not managing the free world. He wasn't talking about diplomacy. He wasn't talking about congressional action. He was thinking about writing checks to Michael Cohen because of Stormy Daniels. So if you want to talk about the rooms that we're in and why we're there and how long we stay there, are you telling me that the person who is now the President of the United States was doing this?
He was also concerned about Karen McDougal.
You're right. You're right. But she's a very beautiful woman, he said, according to testimony today.
But do words not mean anything? I mean,
no, they don't, Abby.
They weren't legal services. That's a fact.
But it's going to his lawyer. It's money going. Look, I know we're going to make a big deal that he watched every penny. I get that part. I think that's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't think they've proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he is involved without how it gets written down in ledger books or how it goes down to his accountant. That's clearly Alan Weisselberg.
Jeff, what level of detail matters?
Well, what you're leaving out, Arthur, understandably, because you're making the case for the defense, is this is not an ordinary legal fee, because as Donald Trump knows, this lawyer laid out $130,000 of his own money.
That he hid from his wife, by the way.
For the campaign.
Right, well, that's what he did well today.
Campaign.
That's what he did well today, is I think he made it clear that this had, if you believe his testimony, that had nothing to do with Melania, this had nothing to do with his family, this had everything to do with the campaign, and that's an essential element.
That was one of the most brutal moments of Michael Cohen's testimony.
বিশ্বামিত্ৰ মুনি আপোনাৰ সাক্ষাৎ প্ৰাৰ্থী ৰৈ আছে সিংহদ্বাৰত
যোৱা ভাই লৈ আহা মুনিবৰক তুমি আদৰি সাদৰি
ভাল দাদা
আহক মুনিবৰ আপোনাৰ শুভ আগমনে পবিত্ৰ কৰিলেই অযোধ্যা নগৰ আমাৰ সেৱা গ্ৰহণ কৰক মনিবৰ কৃপা কৰি ব্যক্ত কৰক আপোনাৰ আগমনৰ উদ্দেশ্য
ৰঘুমণি বিশ্ব শান্তিৰ বাবে আমি মহাযজ্ঞৰ কৰিছিলো আয়োজন কিন্তু অত্যাচাৰী লৱণ দৈত্যই যজ্ঞস্থলী লণ্ডভণ্ড কৰি অত্যাচাৰীক
করিলে আমার তপবন বাকি
মণিবর
হে পদাবৎসল মহামণি শ্রীরামচন্দ্র বধ করি হে লবণ দৈত্যকে শান্তি প্রদান করক আমার তপবন বাকি
তার ইমান স্পর্ধা তপবন বাকি কহি করে অত্যাচার দাদা আজ্ঞা দিয়া দাদা এই মুহূর্ততে বধ করবে পাখণ্ড দৈত্য
অবশ্যই অবশ্যই বধ কৰিব লাগিব সেই দুষ্ট দানৱ
দাদা
মণিবৰ তাৰ বাবে নকৰিব আপুনি মনত অলপ সংশয় ভাই ভৰত
দাদা
তুমি যোৱাৰ কোনো প্ৰয়োজন নাই ভাই
দাদা দাদা
শত্ৰুঘ্ন
দাদা
যোৱা ভাই বধ কৰি তুমি সেই অত্যাচাৰী লৱণ দৈত্য শান্তি প্ৰদান কৰা তপোবনবাসী
দাদা নকৰিবা চিন্তা হে দুষ্ট অসুৰৰ বাবে বধিম নিশ্চয় মই লৱণ দৈত্যকে যাওঁ মই মণিবোৰৰ লগতে সেই দৈত্যক বিচাৰি বলক মণিবৰ যুদ্ধযাত্ৰাৰ কৰোগৈ প্ৰস্তুতি ৰঘুমণি
মণিবৰ
শত ধন্যবাদ মই নিবেদিলো তোমাক
মণিবৰ
অযোধ্যাৰ উজ্জ্বল কীৰ্তি দীপ্তিমান হওক চিৰকাললৈ আহা কুমাৰ
বলা ভাইহঁত
দাদা
আমিও যাওঁ ক্ষন্তে কৰোগৈ বিশ্ৰাম
বলা দাদা